Welcome, everybody, to American Heroes and Coaching Legends show here with Soldiers to Sidelines. I'm Harrison Bernstein, founder and executive director of Soldiers to Sidelines, and I'm just so happy everybody's here. So as we get going, the best part about these closed registration shows is we all get to see each other. This is about connection and being able to be together as a group virtually. So in order to have this be a fantastic show, please, I just remind everybody to stay muted no matter what until it's time for questions. And then when we open up the discussion to questions, put your questions in the chat and then I'll read it and then ask you to unmute yourself to ask one of our coaches or legends tonight your question. So that's going to be the run of show. Also, man, we could not do any of this without the contributions from our partners and our sponsors and everybody here. So just thank you so much for everyone that has contributed. And if you haven't contributed yet, consider doing so because every dollar helps one of our service members and veterans and now military spouses become expert character-based coaches within their community. And we have a wonderful lineup today. Our first guest is a legend in lacrosse coaching. So right now, Coach John Donnowski is the head lacrosse coach at Duke University. He's been the head lacrosse coach at Hofstra. He's coached at CW Post, and he's also the head lacrosse coach of the USA national team. And in the last World Games, won a world championship. So, I mean, there is no one better to discuss leadership, coaching, and lacrosse in general than Coach Danowski. So, Coach, thanks for being here.
Harrison, Jefferson Starship, Chains.
Yes, Jane by Jefferson Starship. So we had a little banter before this thing goes on, and Coach Danowski, I learned, is a music aficionado, and I asked him blindly to guess the artist and title of the intro song. So hopefully everybody loved the Jane by Jefferson Starship. So, Coach, I got to ask you, you have a very strong tie to the military. And if anybody doesn't know, Duke Lacrosse, on the back of their helmets, there's an American flag, and next to it, there's a little black box with an insignia with letters in there, JR10. Coach, can you explain to us what that patch represents and what it means?
Well, it wasn't until, until I arrived, at Duke, in Durham, did I really get an understanding of the military and in a very, I think in a very unique way. Many of the kids who come to Duke, they travel a path to, careers as doctors and lawyers, and, they head to Wall Street or Washington, D.C. or, the major cities. And, but it was the first spring that I was on campus, and Jimmy Regan was killed. Was an Army Ranger, was killed in Afghanistan by a roadside bomb. And it was, that's when it began. We played Army that week. Coach Joe Alberisi and his crew were actually on campus. They had Jimmy's, a lot of the guys who were in Jimmy's company actually presented us, with a sword. It was a very moving ceremony, and that's where it kind of started for us. And at the same time, Casey Carroll, who played at Duke, he enlisted in the Army without, knowing that he could make it as an Army Ranger. He later on becomes a Ranger and serves several tours over in the Mideast. Shortly after that, a couple of our another Kevin Mayer joined the Marines. After that, I guess it was Greg DeLuca became a Navy SEAL. We now have Ethan Powley is currently a Navy SEAL. Dan Fowler is at the tail end of his BUDS commitment and will be earning his Trident. We have one of our seniors, Terry Lindsay, is going to go to BUDS this summer. Joe Manown is going, one of our fifth-year seniors. He's got 2 degrees from Duke, as well as Terry Lindsay has 2 degrees from Duke. They finished their 5th years. And Terry is going to try to become a SEAL. He'd like to. And Joey is going to join the Army and wants to, his ultimate goal is to become a Ranger. And then we have another young man who probably graduated in 16, 17, and through, mistrials and trials, is currently in Coronado right now. So the affiliation with Duke, with the degree, the character of these kids who could go off and do all sorts of things, we just feel this, this incredible, nothing that I'm doing, that's for sure. But, the values that they have learned from their families, from their communities, they've earned 1 and 2 degrees from Duke, but they are willing to serve. And it's something that that they look forward to. So, for us, the Army Creed, the Ranger Creed, we had a Duke, a former Duke, not former lacrosse player, but someone who served, sent us a flag that flew over Fallujah, and that we hang that in our locker room. And so there's just an incredibly, the character of these young men, of what they believe in, of what they want to represent, and the armed services is really important to us.
When I hear that story, Coach, I can't help but think about how Duke is becoming this incredible recruiting ground for the best and brightest for our military services, just in general, not even just like the academies, but everything. And it's really inspiring to see that, because it's, our athletes, our best athletes can be our best airmen, Marines, sailors, and soldiers. And I actually don't believe you at all when you say there's nothing that you're doing. I know there was a culture that was there before, but I believe you've been winning and winning at such a high level. And I think everybody on this call would love to hear, some of the things that you believe in, to really, if you're not igniting those characteristics and those character traits in these young men who are going overseas to fight, what are you doing to further that? Like, what is part of your culture in winning success that can lead to winning in the service?
One of the things that we've had a couple of really cool experiences, and some of our mentors and people that we've met, while I've been at Duke. And I have this saying, I kind of shake my head from time to time and just kind of say, only at Duke. We've been really blessed. We've had Martin Dempsey, who lives here in Raleigh now, as a former, chief commander, chief of staff, under President Obama. And he has spoken to our team. And just listening to him, I've met him at, before Duke basketball games, and, he's just around. I've seen him at mass, on Sunday mornings. Coach K, watching Coach K's lifestyle and how he go about his business, you can see that he's a West Point man, and what's important to him about family and leadership and character and team building. I just can't believe that the one and dones, got to make him crazy. He's not going to say it, but he's an ultra, competitor. But it would be my belief that he probably hates that. And then a couple of years ago, doing an internship here, I met a Navy SEAL. His name is Jamie Sands. And Jamie was a captain in the Navy, and he was here doing a fellowship, a joint program between Duke and UNC. And Jamie is just a guy. I was in the weight room. I started talking to him one day. We became friends. And this goes back now about 5-6 years ago. And he is now a rear admiral in the Navy. And he is just a regular guy, and it's kind of taught me that there are men who achieve, who move up the ladder, so to speak, but can retain their humanity, or they're just, I would go to mass with him on a Sunday morning, and we would we'd get coffee afterwards, and we would just talk about high achieving organizations and the challenges that face, the Navy SEALs, and that face college lacrosse teams, and things like entitlement and, work ethic, and maybe he was talking about drug abuse and uh, the different things that happen in these organizations when you have a lot of individuals that come through. We've been really lucky to meet these men and for them to teach us and kind of steer us in a direction that we want to go.
Great answer. And I just want everyone to know too, like one of the reasons why we're all here is we have this incredible lacrosse coaching certification seminar coming up June 21st. It's 5 days long. So if anybody's on this call for the first time and has any interest in becoming a lacrosse coach or really improving your own coaching leadership practice, register for this seminar. It's free. It's super interesting, and you have great speakers like Coach Donnowski throughout the week that we get to learn all these incredible leadership lessons from. And even if you're not going to register, spread the word to another service member or veteran who might be interested in doing this and indoctrinating them into our Soldiers to Sidelines tribe. And also, I want to now turn over the discussion to everybody on the call. So if you have a question for Coach Donnowski, put it in the chat, and then I'll ask you to unmute yourself, and then we'll start the dialogue going right there. And
hey, Harrison, can I just jump in for 1 second?
Yeah.
I just want to I just want to jump on this concept of getting involved and coaching, and these young men and women, whichever group you're coaching, they need you now more than ever. They need to be in the company of men, and that may not sound, maybe I'm not as politically correct as I should be, but they need to be around men of incredibly high character, people who know right from wrong, who will teach these young men. It's lacking, the kids, they're not, I guess they're growing up a little differently than we all grew up, but at the end of the day, they need you. And no matter what form, whether it's once a week, for an hour, or but they need, they need strong men in their lives. And I think what you guys are doing is phenomenal. But I'm sorry, and that's unsolicited. I just want to throw that in there.
Well, I appreciate that. And, I was going to ask you that question. I thank you for saying that. You kind of beat me to it. And I have another question for you as everybody else is typing in theirs. And what are some of your strategies to handle sudden change? Like, for instance, the pandemic, you have your whole, season planned out, no season, or, things that have sudden change in practice, sudden change in a game. Like we had a sudden change going into this call tonight. And what are some of your things that you do to handle and approach sudden change?
I think one of the things that I learned when I first arrived at Duke is that you can't be afraid to fail. It's, I guess there's an old saying that, those, I think it's John F. Kennedy is quoted as saying something like, those who dare to fail greatly, can only achieve greatly. And I'm not so sure about the achieving greatly, but I know that, like going into the pandemic, for example, last year, we wanted to keep the team together and we couldn't practice. Everybody was isolated. Everybody got sent home. So, we tried to do the Zoom thing, right? We're all learning about Zoom. And it took me about 2 or 3 days. And I said, you know what? I can't hold their attention every day. I got to figure this out. So all of a sudden, I went to my Rolodex and I looked at the people that I knew back from my Hofstra days, back from people I'd met at Duke. All of a sudden we had Danny Quinn, who was the head coach, at the time with the Atlanta Falcons. So he speaks to the team one day. And then we had Kyle Flood, who was with us at Hofstra, and he was the offensive line coach at Alabama, and he spoke to the team. And then somebody put me in touch with Rudy Rudiger of Rudy fame, and Rudy spoke to the team. And if you've watched any of Adam Sandler's movies, Peter Dante played for me at Hofstra. Peter Dante got on, one day, and somebody turned me on to this assistant coach of the Boston Bruins, who I just saw the other night at the outside the Nassau Coliseum, Kevin Dean. Kevin spoke to the team. We had doctors, we had lawyers, we had gentlemen from the business world, but we had people from the athletic world, and we probably kept that going for about 5 weeks. to the point where it became incredibly educational. Jamie Sands, who I spoke of before, he spoke to the team. And so it was a way of just kind of keeping the team together, a way that we could learn from leadership. We could learn from, different industries in the world. We had James Coleman, who was the professor who did in 2006, the Duke Lacrosse case. And he was the neutral observer to what was going on with the men's lacrosse program. And he spoke to the team. So it was really adjust, adapt, and overcome. And truly that's you've got to do that on a daily basis, in our world.
Yeah, what a great idea to kind of like change the focus from lacrosse and like that the should do's to more of like the want to's, right? And you get to hear from all these great folks, and then you're also growing their networks. That's what's so cool about this is we're all on this call and our cameras are on. We get to see each other. We get to use the chat, and your network grows because we're all sharing this opportunity right now, just the way your players are sharing opportunities with all those great speakers. And Coach John Schneider has a question for you. John, you want to unmute yourself?
Got it. Hey, thanks, Harrison. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. Question. Now, I don't have any players that I'm going to say, hey, Coach D, I've got this guy for you. Not going to do that, right? My guys aren't ready. But for us who coach at the youth level, at the high school level, what are some of the things that you see when you get young men? Now, you're getting highly motivated guys. They're playing at a consistent top 3 D1 school. Okay, fine. But generally speaking, from what you and your assistants are seeing, what are some of the things that we can do at the younger ages to help prepare them, whether it's for a high flying program like yours or just in general, so they're more effective young men at 18, 19, whenever they join you? How can we help get them more prepared from what you're seeing?
First and foremost for me, and I think, I see Coach Emmer here on the call, and I see Coach Murphy and a couple others. I am and I think we would all agree, we are huge believers in the multi-sport experience. Football, soccer, basketball, wrestling, hockey, baseball. I guess you gotta, maybe you can't hit the curve in the summer or something, but those experiences that transition, you're being coached all year round. You're listening to different coaching styles. This coach is really tough on me. This coach is rather easy on me. This coach is, defensively, when I play basketball, I have open up to a cutter, or I'm a defensive back, and, I'm learning how to defend, one-on-one, and I'm, somebody, makes an in move and I open up and I run with the receiver. Or I have to push him off his mark so he can't get to that spot. All those things carry over to our sport. And those kids have such an advantage over the lacrosse player who plays all year round, ultimately. And I think, number one, you're going to recognize they enjoy competing. And you don't have to be the star of the basketball team. You can be the 14th guy of a 14-man roster, but you go out and practice every day. You're learning the value of being a great teammate, and so maybe if basketball is not your sport, but you do enjoy it, now I'm not saying that to go out there if they don't enjoy it, but, those lessons that they learn, they have such an advantage. And then the second thing I would say, that answer would be the fundamentals never fail you, never. Those tried and true, whether it's stick protection, playing with both hands. I know that there's a lot now where a lot of coaches will say, hey, listen, we're just going to teach, kids to play with their strong hand and leave it at that because that's their strength, and, they'll be good enough. And, we used to have this argument. Jordan Wolf, when he played for us, he was strictly a right-handed attackman. And we used to scream at him in practice to use his left hand. And we would say, if you could figure this out, instead of getting 45 points a year, you'd get 90 points a year. Well, by the time he was a junior or senior, he figured out how to use his left hand. But it takes, on your part, patience, creativity, discipline, teaching them the role of discipline in their development, which are all things that are going to carry them the rest of their lives. And, there's always this fine line between being this taskmaster and, a player's coach. But at the end, if you think about the coaches in your life who had the most effect, the biggest effect on you, it's not the guy who let you slide. Yeah, I remember my coach in ninth grade. He was great. I could do anything I wanted. They talk about the guys who were demanding and tough and would not let you, would not let you go if you made that mistake or that same mistake twice, and were more demanding of you. So to me, it's the multi-sport athlete, and it's this really strong, what's the word? Just the discipline of something happened here.
I think you're good.
I'm back. Okay, yep, I'm back. It was my computer. It's just the adherence to fundamentals, and you'll never go wrong.
I love it. Yeah, discipline, right? And working through, I hear working through some of the more difficult skill sets at a young age, and then the coaches being patient where it might result in not winning quite as much because we're developing a skill on their weak hand, that's a really cool lesson to take away. Coach Duggan, you have a question for Coach Donnowski. You want to unmute yourself?
Sure. Hey, thanks a lot. Hey, Coach. Just as a sidebar, we met years ago. We coached against each other. I was coaching at Air Force. You were at Hofstra.
Okay.
I'd like to say I forgot the outcome, but I think you pretty much whipped my butt back then. So, but anyway, great program. Really admire it. Resiliency, big thing nowadays. It used to be the time years and years ago. I'm sure you remember you could grab a kid by the face mask, drag him into you, and scream and yell and spit in his face and everything else. Obviously, didn't serve a whole lot of purpose, nor can you do that anymore. How do you deal with resiliency? Do you have methods? Do you have techniques? Do you mention it outwardly to your players? Or how do you approach it?
It's that piece of it's getting harder and harder. And the kids who come from, and especially in our sport, the kids who come from the blue collar homes, they get it. You can still pretty much coach them harder than some of the other kids who have it's just a different community, a different background, a different, and they're all great kids. I mean, they're all wonderful. I mean, like our guys are incredible kids, but you're right, and they're growing up a little bit differently in how you deal with, topics like resiliency, work ethic, understanding your role, waiting your turn, coming into any program. If a coach is doing a good job, even in high school, freshmen and sophomores should not be on the varsity, because, juniors and seniors, it should be their time, and it should be, they're the ones that should be just better than the freshmen and sophomores. And, kids changing schools, the ability for them to, change clubs. I don't like my club team. I'm not getting enough playing time, or that club team is not good enough. I'm going to go somewhere else. We're seeing that in the transfer portal, right? We're seeing 1,300 men's basketball players in Division I in the transfer portal. Hey, I don't like this school. Let me make a change, as opposed to hanging in there. A lot of it's got to do for us. We try to use the whys. I'm going to explain to you why we do it, why we make this decision, what it is that we're looking for. And even though we explain the why, they still may not be able to understand it, but at least we do. At least we can put our head on the pillow at night and feel like that, that we're doing a good job. You can use emails and texts, and where you can set up your goals and give kids feedback. You can use a little bit of video. You can there's a lot of extra time you can put in, and probably now more than ever, there's more extra time that's being put in than ever before. You just can't really walk off the field and look forward to the next day, that you've got to follow it up. And we're still learning how to deal with that. We're still trying to figure that out.
Awesome, Coach. And, this whole night is brought to us by our proud partner, USA Lacrosse. And One of our dear friends from USA Lacrosse, Kevin Green, has a question. So, Kevin, would you like to unmute yourself and ask your question?
Which one of the millions of questions should I ask here?
Hi, Kevin.
Hi, John. Thanks for being on here. Really appreciate it.
Me?
Missed you at the national team tryouts the other day, but you talk about commitment. The best part about it was watching kids be coachable, right? It was just such a great thing. So one question about lacrosse, but I want to go back to kind of the character traits. So I don't know if everybody knows this story, but I'd love to have a little bit more depth from you if I could on, was it 2012 when you worked with Dan, and is it Reisiger? I could never pronounce his name. When you had, it was The Heart and the Fist, right? The book that you all read.
Yes, yeah. Oh, Dan Woodwright. Yes.
Yeah. So can you talk about, maybe you could do a quick recap of the story, but I'm really curious as to, now we're almost 10 years later, what impact did you see on the guys on the team, on yourself, and even 10 years later, going through those scenarios of changing, turning punishment into real learning opportunities?
The kids at Duke give us very few opportunities, to really do any real work in that respect. In fact, I'd like them to get in a little more trouble, a little college, because it's okay. They just live in a world right now where in order to get to Duke, you can never be in a principal's office. You have to have A's and B's. You have to have 4 AP courses. You have to, and everybody's got a video, camera on their phone. And if you screw up, people are going to know. And kids are, they come to school pretty wired, and you like to see a little college hijinks every once in a while. But Danny kind of crossed the line. And I just finished the book, Heart and Fist by Eric Greitens. Now, Eric Greitens, and I didn't even know when I read the book initially, I didn't know his story, but he was from Missouri, and he's a Duke, comes to Duke. He learns how to box. He learns one summer he goes to China to do some, like community work. Another summer, I think he goes to South America. And then when he graduates from Duke, he decides he wants to become a Navy SEAL. He becomes a Rhodes Scholar. So he's a Rhodes Scholar. He goes to England, then he becomes a Navy SEAL, and he writes this book, The Heart and the Fist, and basically says that, you got to have both. You have to have compassion for people. You have to care deeply about those around you. But yet you've got to be able to come down with the fist as well, when it's appropriate and when it's necessary. So we had Danny actually, until he could be like reinstated on the team, each morning, it was during fall practice, each morning we would have Danny come in and talk to the guys about the chapter that he just read and just explain to it in his words what he read, not to just kind of give it back to us verbatim. So the idea was that, that not only was going to be somewhat hopefully powerful for Danny, but it was going to be powerful, for the team as well. And, and a little bit of, hey, listen, this is the last thing I want to do, right? I don't want to get in trouble where these coach is going to make me read a book and, I'm going to have to talk to the team about it, but, a little bit of peer pressure. But it was one of those things that you just kind of say, listen, suspending him, I'm not sure what that's going to do, but making it meaningful and making it, and so that was something that we did with him.
So have you, just a quick follow-up, have you talked, I know your players are amazing. They come back and, invite you to their weddings and things like that. Have you had kind of a follow-up conversation with him through the years of how that's impacted him?
I really haven't. It's one of those things where we tell guys, we always tell them to pay it forward. We say, listen, it's over now. And just, whatever you do, just I'm going to trust you to pay it forward. But we did a similar thing this year with Black Lives Matter, where I bought everybody the book by John Lewis, Across That Bridge. And after practice, for 7-8 days in the fall, each class, the freshman class would have to read a chapter, the sophomore class, and then they would just, in their own words, just kind of reflect to the team about what they read. one of our African-American players challenged me before the season started and said, "Coach, we got to do something." And so that was one of the things that we did with this year's group. So, there are different ways of, and for me, it was about educating our white players, educating our white players to the struggle, to be educated, to be able to learn how to listen and share with one another. And if you read anything by John Lewis, he's terrific, and it was a really easy book, and it was really something that we thought that our guys could relate to. Again, I think it brought our team closer, and I think it helped us, maybe just create just a tiny ripple,
Thanks so much, Coach, for that answer. And in fact, you unknowingly answered Coach Craig McMichael's question, what he wrote in the chat. And, we have so many questions. We could talk all night. It's like trying to get your ear is a very, very precious gift that you're giving us and teaching us all these great lessons. So we're actually going to move on to our next guest, Coach. And I just want to thank you so much for supporting our soldier coaches and being here for everyone on the call, especially as we get fired up for upcoming lacrosse coaching seminar. And if you ever want to be a part of one of those in the future, we would love to have you as one of our very special guests. So Coach John Donnowski, thank you so much for your time tonight.
Harrison, listen, I'd love for you to share my contact information with everybody. You could share my email, my cell phone. And anybody wants to reach out to get in touch with me, listen, summertime it's the summer, man. It's over. Sadly, it's over. We can't coach again until August, for us. So, just please, anybody contact me, and I'd be delighted to start a relationship, to work, continue a relationship that we already have, and to help anybody along the way. But you guys are the true missionaries of the sport. Listen, I get paid for what I do. Listen, I get all that stuff, but you guys, you do the real work, and really, my hat's off to everybody here.
Thanks for the great message, Coach. And Kevin, if I could, Green, if you wouldn't mind putting his contact information in the chat while I introduced our next super inspirational guest that I'm so happy is here tonight. And it's a gentleman named Ben Harrow. And so Ben was born in Brooklyn, New York, grew up in Great Neck, Long Island. And then after graduating Woodbury Forest School in Virginia, he attended the United States Military Academy, where he was a 4-year letterman on the lacrosse team. And that team made the NCAA appearances in 2003, 2004, and 2005. So his senior year on the lacrosse team, he was awarded the quote unquote unsung hero award for his selflessness contributions to the team. He commissioned as a second lieutenant in the infantry, attended airborne school. He was an infantry officer basic course and ranger school. He was an infantry platoon leader with the 1st Cav Division and deployed to Iraq for 15 months with his platoon. Upon returning from Iraq, he immediately attended the Special Forces Assessment and Selection, was selected, and began the Special Forces Q course. In 2010, Captain Ben Harrow earned the coveted Green Beret and Special Forces tab. He was a Special Forces Detachment Commander and led 2 separate operational detachment alphas on deployments to Afghanistan supporting Combined Joint Special Operations Task Force Afghanistan. On May 15th, 2012, Captain Harrow stepped on an IED, resulting in the amputation of both legs above the knee, 2 fingers on his right hand, as well as other injuries. During his recovery, he refused to give in to his circumstances, and by his own ingenuity, discovered a medical procedure to not only get himself up and walking, but other wounded service members as well. He resides with his wife, 2 children in Bethesda, and he's also the president of PAMJets. It's a private aviation aircraft management company. So Captain Harrow was awarded 3 Bronze Stars, a Purple Heart, amongst other awards and accommodations. So it is our favorite and deepest honor to have Coach Ben Harrow. Thanks for being here, Coach.
Thanks so much. Just wanted to say real quick, not only did we make 3 NCAA appearances, 2003, 2004, and 2005, but we did beat Hofstra up at Mikey 2005 versus Coach Donnowski, I believe. But also it's interesting because it's such a small world. The special operations community, I think, is always really close and tight knit, but coming back to lacrosse events like this, it's the lacrosse world is even closer I grew up on Long Island, and I remember going to Hofstra games, and I even went to Hofstra lacrosse camp with Coach Donnowski there. And Chris Panos was my counselor. I remember watching Blake Miller and those guys. And then obviously, my two coaches from college are on this call tonight. So it's just such a small, interesting world.
Yeah, and a very involved and passionate community of lacrosse soldier coaches, specifically as it relates to the military. And your story and everything that you're about in character means a lot. And I want to hear, how has your experience playing lacrosse growing up influenced you for such a successful career in the military? And what about lacrosse specifically got you to even want to join West Point, enroll in West Point?
Yeah. So, I guess how I got to West Point was, I wanted to play Division I lacrosse. I actually picked up lacrosse in 7th or 8th grade, and it was really only because my hockey coach at the time told me to go pick up a lacrosse stick during the summer. And I kind of really fell in love with it. And, obviously where I went to high school, there wasn't a hockey team, so I got more serious into lacrosse. And when it came time to apply to college and figure out where I was going to school, I just knew I wanted to play Division I lacrosse. And it was really down to West Point and Navy, who were recruiting me the heaviest. And a guy named Coach Randall, who was up at Army at the time, he was recruiting me. And then I kind of just felt the love from West Point. And to be honest, I wanted to be part of something that was kind of more than just going to a university. I also didn't really know what I wanted to be when I grew up, besides playing college lacrosse and filling out my college application of what do you want to major in. And I really didn't know at the time, but I knew going into the military, I would have a job for the first 5 years and kind of figure things out from there. And plus the academy connections is a strong network. So I'd figure out what I do for work afterwards. And so that's kind of how I ended up at West Point. And, Coach Donnowski touched on it before with the resiliency piece and how do you kind of build that mental toughness. And a lot of that, I feel like personally came from, me being a lacrosse player, and I wanted to play Division I, and I knew what that would take. And even when I got to college, as a plebe on the team, I wanted to play. Like, I was there to play. I wasn't there just to sit on the sideline. And, when the time came, the beginning of my junior year, I got asked if I would switch from midfield, and I was recruited as an attackman. So I was very offensive minded to, hey, would you play defensive midi for us? I said, sure, not a problem. Cause I just wanted to step on the field and play and win. And, a lot of that, I look back on the mental toughness and resiliency piece on both my coaches, Coach Emmer and Coach Murphy, who I know are both on here tonight. And, guys that, they rode me hard. And when I messed up, I heard about it. But those were guys that, looking back on it, you didn't want to disappoint. And you respected and feared them in a little bit of a way, but guys that you just wanted to perform for.
So we have a unique opportunity here where those coaches are on this call tonight. And I have to ask you, the resiliency lessons that those coaches instilled in you as a player, how did that impact your resiliency to overcome the event that happened to you in your service on the battlefield?
It's directly correlated to it. I was actually ironically just speaking at a event tonight over at the Gonzaga hockey team senior dinner, and we were talking about this. And one of the big piece of my story is I took myself off of my pain medicine so soon. I got injured in the first 2 weeks. I was on every type of pain medicine you could think of. And around week 3 or 4, I didn't feel like myself. And I knew that was kind of like the first hurdle, was like feeling like Ben again and getting ready to heal and kind of tackle whatever was next. And I ended up refusing all my pain medicine and just dealing with a crazy amount of pain. And there was really 2 reasons that I got through that tough situation of not only just going through the pain aspect, but also the narcotic withdrawal aspect. was one, my wife. She was there by my bed, helping me, like coaching me through and being there to support me. But, when I really had a tough time and I kind of had to go to my mental happy place, it was going back to Truxton. And I would just think about being with the team and how much it meant to be on a team like Army, and just that team dynamic. And I would remember where everyone's locker was in Truxton. I would remember the smell of Truxton. And if anyone's been in a lacrosse locker room, everybody knows what it smells like, and the sound of the cleats walking out to Mikey, and just everything that dealt with lacrosse, and what it meant to play for Coach Emmer and Coach Murph and Coach DeAnge, and being part of that program.
Well, I just can't thank Coach Emmer and Coach Murphy enough for providing that environment for you to build that resiliency, so you can be with us here today. And guys, this is the power of being a coach. There's nothing more powerful in the world. Think about those lessons, all those things that we do, with what that has done for Ben earlier. He didn't know what was going to happen to him later, and now that's potentially life-saving. And every single day we step out on the field or the court or what have you, the track, it's an opportunity to give someone the skills that will eventually save their life one day. And that's why I'm just so grateful that everyone's here, and that's why Soldiers of Sidelines exists. And, Ben, you and I were kind of talking offline here before this call, and the leadership qualities and the coaching skills that you've learned through lacrosse and your service has now set you up to be CEO of a prestigious company. And how has that helped you in your business leadership?
Yeah. I mean, even taking a step back, and we were talking about it last night, experiencing good coaching and bad coaching, those are lessons that I took to heart, and I understood how to properly motivate people. And, one of the main missions as a Green Beret, you're in this strategic environment, having to influence people that you don't speak their language. You're the white guy. You're surrounded by all these Afghans behind enemy lines, and you have to be able to properly motivate and influence them in order to achieve strategic success for the United States and what we're trying to do wherever, whether that's in Afghanistan, Colombia, Africa. We're all over the globe doing that. And so being able to properly motivate without seeming, being the dictator coach, that was something I picked up early on from, not just lacrosse coaches, but my hockey coaches growing up, and what right looked like. But definitely now in the civilian world, I'm a coach in the business world, and I have to be able to motivate. And my company was strategically built. We built it strategically to be separated across the United States and even globally. I have teams in California. I'm in DC. I'm moving to Florida. I have business units up in New York, in the tri-state area. So being able to properly lead and motivate and inspire for your team to accomplish that end state, that's a big deal.
You said two words that are dear to Soldiers of Sidelines' heart, and that's motivate and inspire. And so now I want to turn the discussion over to questions from the group. So just like before with Coach Donnowski, please put your questions in the chat, and I'll ask you to unmute. And while everyone's writing that, Ben, I'll start us off again here with the concept of coaching, and how does that, in your mind, extend beyond the sidelines? You talked about in business, but how about with your family? Is it the same?
Yeah, I mean, I feel that I'm coaching. I helped out coach here and there, and I coached lacrosse camp, and I helped coach my son's youth hockey team, and whatever else. Nothing to the level of some of the guys on the call tonight. But I feel like I am coaching in a way with my kids, and being able to show them that right path of character. Whether it's my son in trying to raise him to be just a good person, an athlete all around first, respectful, and my daughter, and just teaching them to be good little human beings, and coaching them in that respect, and being there and being the role model, and leading by example too.
Do you have any specific instances, like off the top of your head, and it's okay if you don't, but like ways that you do that, like on an everyday level? Because sometimes, we'll put coaching like the practice on a pedestal where it's like you have to be Coach Donnowski and you have like these mind tricks and you're just like this awesome motivator. But there's things that I think we do every single day. Are there any things that you can share with us that seem completely mundane but work?
I don't know if I have any great examples of that, I'd say with my kids and, being the coach to my kids and then being the coach in business, it is two different methodologies. With coaching, I think in business, sometimes I feel like people as adults, you let them in both ways. I think you need to let people fail. And as adults, I think people realize that a little sooner, and you don't need to be involved as much, but kind of let things run their course and people see the error of their ways, and you can kind of circle back and be like, this is what we were talking about. I had mentioned that you've fallen on your face. Let's pick ourselves up and keep going. With my kids, since they're 10 and 6, it's a little more, I have to be in their face about it when they fail. But I do think the failure piece, and people learn from their failures. I did, whether that was on the lacrosse field, whether that was hockey. You only skate looking down at the puck once, and then you get laid out and you never do that again. And lacrosse, you only run diagonal across the field and get laid out on a hospital pass once before you learn how to run up the field properly, expecting that pass. And sometimes those lessons in life are the best ones, and they hurt the most.
Yeah. Allowing people to fail, knowing it's going to be harmful and just letting them do it anyway is much easier said than done, especially if you care about them. And
Yeah.
Greg has a question. You put it in the chat. Greg, you want to unmute yourself?
Yeah, I remember meeting Ben. Ben stood in my office. I was one of the early civilians that he worked with. And I remember Ben standing there, or not standing there, but sitting in his wheelchair. He was about to get fitted for his first legs. And he was going through the most horrendous experience in order to get some fake legs. And he was talking about training for a marathon. And I was thinking, oh my God, I don't go jogging anymore because my knee gets kind of sore. And hearing Ben talk reminds me of the ridiculous mental toughness that Ben developed. And I'd just love to hear how some of the mental toughness, I want to hear about your injury in Afghanistan, and how basically almost no human being on the planet would have gotten through what you got through, but how you leverage some of your experiences from sports to create that mental toughness that gets you to here today, sitting on this call, being a successful CEO.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things, and thanks, Greg. I remember you too from our times at Convergent, and you were the Naval Academy guy that we were buddies since we were both Academy guys. Me getting injured in Afghanistan, obviously horrible, and waking up in a hospital bed with no legs, and being an athlete my entire life, and that kind of being my identity. And I was a high school athlete, a college athlete, a tactical athlete as an SF guy, and basically having my two legs ripped off me on a bomb blast was just crushing. But through my lessons learned as an athlete, I knew I wanted to still be Ben, and I still wanted to be an athlete, and I still had a son, and I wanted to be a father. And it was that want and that will that no matter what it was, I was going to figure out a way. And, I kind of just took it bit by bit. And the first step was getting off the narcotics. And the next step was trying to figure out a way to walk. And I had to end up breaking my femur and stretching out a broken bone to regrow the most bone on a human being, which was a record I set. And, every time I got told no, whether it was a doctor or a therapist at the hospital, you're not my guy. If you're going to tell me no, you're not my guy. And I eventually discovered this non-FDA process to regrow bone, got myself up and walking, And then, still today, I think in the business world, tons of times I get told, no, you know what? You're not my guy. I'll figure out a way. I know what the end state is. I know where we need to be. I know we can get there. But nothing's going to stop me from getting there.
I mean, if that's not an inspirational message, I don't know what is. Tom, Duggan, you have a question again.
Yeah, real quick. Hey, Ben, great. Thanks for coming on. Just really impressive. I'm an Air Force Academy guy myself, and I seem to remember some guy named MacArthur said something that I think you can directly relate to. On the fields of friendly strife are sown the seeds, which on other days and other fields bear the fruits of victory. And you are a true inspiration, a true model, and a true representation, I think, and maybe I'm wrong, but I think of that quote and how it pertains to what you've done in the life that you've lived serving in the military. And I thank you very much.
I appreciate that. And I do think there's a lot of truth to that. I mean, between when I went to Special Forces Assessment and Selection, it was myself, a guy named Chris Couch, who I played lacrosse with, Matt Element. The three of us, we all played lacrosse together. We all went Special Forces. The majority of my senior class, we're the class of 9/11. So we actually all entered the academy before 9/11. And it was that fall when the towers got hit and we were attacked in the Pentagon, and the plane went down in PA. So we all entered the academy not thinking that we would be going to war. But my senior class, the majority of my classmates on the lacrosse team, we all picked combat arms. There's a lot to be said. I think the relationship between lacrosse and it being a warrior sport, and guys like myself and guys that Coach Donnowski coached at Duke, it sounded like all going into the Navy and being SEALs, and guys going to special operations. It's kind of just like another calling, what to do after graduation and being a lacrosse player.
Great response. Coach Kevin Green from USA Lacrosse, you have a question for Ben.
Yeah, and this is certainly not leading, Ben, so don't take it that way. But first of all, thank you so much for being here. I shared the article that we wrote about you, and I hope everybody takes the time to read it. But you talked about something really, really critical, I think, especially for this organization. You talked about your identity as a lacrosse player, right? There's also that, and this is really where the lines start to blur, because can you talk about, lacrosse? Yes, there's an identity there, and I'm going to have to deal with it as my son starts to, transition out of school in a year, out of college. But the military, once you take that uniform off, how is the struggle the same or even more intense as you go into civilian life? And what are some things that we can do, obviously through Soldiers to Sidelines, but just regular business people, good citizens, friends, family? What can we do to help that transition be a little bit smoother, a little bit easier? Because I can't, not being a vet, I'm so humbled to be part of this. Hopefully that you can help me understand that significant shift in life.
Yeah. Well, I mean, first off, I think it falls down, and I don't mean to sound cold or I guess it's just I'm more of a stoic, but it is, I think, the individual's responsibility to realize, the transition piece and to be able to deal and cope with that. The great support groups, and that can help as well. But at the end of the day, it's the individual that, just like in Ranger School, it's the PL that, you're responsible for everything that your platoon fails to do and accomplishes to do. And I think it's the same for that individual when it comes to transition. Now, with that said, I do think that, retiring, being forced to retire as a Green Beret medically, because I lost my legs, it's like being an NFL star where, you're the guy, you're on the varsity. Every day is like the Super Bowl. You have a whole support system that gets you all of your gear. You have the best gear, you get the best training, you've got a gym. You're the guy. And to be the guy on Monday and then to not be the guy on Tuesday, it's hard. And I realized through my transition that I'll never have one thing that will replace the other one thing. I'll never have one thing that will replace being a Green Beret and having that brotherhood and having that adventure. However, I have realized that there are many little things that equal that one thing. And, now I'm lucky enough that I built a business where it keeps me mentally stimulated. I still travel. I still get to meet interesting people. It meets that aspect. Physically, I still feel like I'm always an athlete. Every day I'm in the gym doing something, whether it's lifting weights or just going to walk a mile, or I'm hand cycling. Every day I'm doing something physically. And then, there's other little things. I've gotten, more into yoga. I love doing that. There's a lot of little things. Oh, and being a coach and a dad to my kids and being a father and being a husband. So there's lots of little things I feel like that add up to that one big thing of being that guy in the uniform. And I think people, the sooner that you realize that, the smoother transition that you'll have.
Yes, that's great advice, right? And when I hear you talk, Ben, in your recovery, you kept saying, I want to get back to being Ben. You kept saying, I want to get back to being Ben, and you got back to being who you are, not what you did. And I think when I hear you, that was probably a huge character trait to instill that resilience and overcome those adversity, because it was about Ben, not about being Captain Ben Harrow, not about being, any of these other titles. And what's so cool about the Soldiers to Sidelines lacrosse coaching certification is we actually have a full section dedicated on understanding the difference between identity and role. And it's very powerful. It's like freeing. Like once we realize that, even as civilians like myself, it really opens up the opportunities of all these things you can achieve, and you wind up being happier. So Ben, thank you so much for that message. And, again, we could answer questions all night, but we wanted to keep tonight to an hour. And I just have to thank Coach Donnowski for his time tonight. Thank you, Ben Harrow, for giving these inspirational messages. We are trying to create an army of soldier coaches to be exactly like you, inspiring and motivating thousands and thousands of young athletes throughout our country. And maybe just like John Danowski does, some of your players will wind up joining the military as well. And now we can give ourselves a national security boon. And I got to thank Kevin Green and our partner USA Lacrosse for putting this on tonight. Could not have done it without you. I thank all of our other sponsors and partners for making all of our soldier coaches successful out in the communities. And if you are on this call as an aspiring soldier coach, please join us at our lacrosse seminar starting on June 21st. And if you want to support our folks, just donate. Goes such a long way in us creating an army of soldier coaches. Thank you, everybody, and we will see you at the next show of American Heroes and Coaching Legends. Good night, everyone.